Los Angeles was still asleep when the sky turned gray. The city lights blinked lazily against the mist, and the streets were painted in silver by a soft drizzle that had been falling since dawn. Inside a sleek black Tesla parked at a red light on Sunset Boulevard sat Elena Hartman, a woman who, despite her fortune, carried silence like a second skin. Her eyes were sharp yet tired, her blonde hair pulled back neatly, her face calm to calm, almost practiced. To everyone else, she was the Elena Hartman, widow of the late business mogul Daniel Hartman, founder of Hartman Global Holdings, a woman worth hundreds of millions, a philanthropist, a board member, the kind of person you'd see on the cover of Forbes. But behind those accolades was something much quieter, an ache, a silence that had become her most loyal companion. It had been 3 years since Daniel died. 3 years of charity dinners, solo travels, and coming home to a mansion so big that her footsteps echoed back at her. That morning, she was returning from a hospital gala she didn't even want to attend. Her driver, Marcus, glanced at her through the rear-view mirror. "Ma'am, should I take the freeway or the old route through 7th? Elena barely looked up from her phone. "Whichever's faster, Marcus," he nodded, taking a turn toward downtown, the old route, and that's when fate decided to intervene. As the car slowed at a crosswalk, Elena's attention drifted out the window. There, across the street, sat a woman, drenched, barefoot, holding 2 crying babies in her arms. She couldn't have been older than 25. Her clothes were torn, her hair plastered to her face from the rain. The babies were wrapped in what looked like old towels, their tiny faces red from the cold. Pedestrians passed without looking twice. A man in a suit stepped around her like she was invisible. Elena frowned. Something in her chest tightened. "Marcus, stop the car." He hesitated. "Here, ma'am. This isn't the best." "Stop the car." Her voice was calm but firm. The Tesla slowed to the curb before Marcus could reach for an umbrella. Elena had already opened her door, stepping into the drizzle without a second thought. The cold drops hit her face, but she barely noticed. The young woman looked up, startled. Her eyes widened as she realized who stood before her. Not that Elena expected recognition, but something about that reaction made her heart twist. "You shouldn't be out here with them," Elena said gently, crouching a little to see the babies better. I didn't have anywhere else to go," the woman whispered. Her voice cracked, her lips trembling from the cold. "What's your name?" Lena Rivera." Elena nodded slowly. "And the babies?" "They're mine," she said quickly, as if expecting disbelief. "Their names are Michael and Mason. They're only 8 months old." Elena looked closer, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Both babies had strikingly familiar eyes. Hazel green, light brown in the rain, the same rare color Daniel used to have. Her throat tightened. It couldn't be. She blinked hard, shaking the thought away. Coincidences happen, right? Still, she found herself whispering, "They're beautiful." Lena gave a tired smile, half grateful, half embarrassed. "Thank you, ma'am. I just need a little help. A place to dry them off." Elena's instincts, the ones that had made her a business legend, were usually cautious, but right then, her heart made the decision. "Get up," she said softly. "Come with me." Lena's eyes widened. I can't. I don't want trouble." "No trouble," Elena reassured her. "Just come." She helped Lena to her feet, gestured to Marcus, and within seconds, the soaked woman and her twins were inside the warm Tesla, wrapped in Elena's cashmere coat. As the car pulled away, Lena stared out the window, whispering, "You didn't have to stop." Elena's gaze softened. "Maybe not, but sometimes, when something pulls at your heart, you don't ask why. You just listen." The car drove through the rain toward the hills, toward the mansion that stood behind tall iron gates and a world far from the one Lena came from. Elena leaned back, watching the babies slowly fall asleep in their mother's arms. Their tiny faces looked peaceful, innocent, unaware of the storm they were about to bring into her life. And for the first time in years, Elena felt something unfamiliar. Warmth. A strange, dangerous kind of hope sometimes. The people we stop for are the very ones fate uses to test our hearts, and sometimes, The kindness that makes us human becomes the key to our own destruction. If this story already touches your heart, don't leave without subscribing, because the next chapters will make you question what love, loyalty, and forgiveness truly mean. If you were in Elena's shoes, would you have stopped for the young mother or kept driving? Comment your answer below. I'm curious how your heart would decide. By the time the Tesla reached Elena's mansion, the rain had stopped, leaving the sky washed clean. The driveway shimmered with silver puddles as the gate slid open to reveal the Hartman estate. Acres of manicured lawns, a marble fountain, and a house so large it looked like something out of a movie. Lena's mouth parted slightly as she stared out the window. "This is your home?" she whispered. Elena nodded quietly. "It's quieter than it looks inside." Warmth replaced the chill of the rain. Housekeepers hurried forward, startled to see their usually composed employer carrying a crying baby wrapped in a wet towel. "Get 2 towels and some warm milk," Elena said. Her tone was soft but steady, the kind that made people move without hesitation. Lena stood near the entrance, her eyes darting around the grand foyer, trying not to look impressed, but her awe was impossible to hide. The chandelier above glimmered like a sky full of stars, and the air smelled faintly of jasmine and cedar. "Come," Elena said gently. "Let's get them dry." Minutes later, the twins were wrapped in soft blankets, their cheeks pink again as they lay on the couch near the fireplace. The warmth made them yawn. For the first time that day, they looked content. Lena watched them, her eyes wet. "I can't thank you enough," she murmured. "No one's ever." She stopped herself, embarrassed. Elena smiled faintly. "You don't have to thank me, just rest tonight. You and the babies are safe here." When Lena tried to protest, Elena held up a hand. "Tomorrow, we'll figure things out tonight. You're not sleeping on the street." Something in Lena's eyes, the mix of exhaustion and disbelief, hit Elena harder than she expected. She'd seen that look before, in the mirror, years ago, when her husband's funeral ended and everyone else went home. That night, after the twins were settled in the guest room, Elena stood at the door, watching them sleep. 2 little chests rising and falling, 2 pairs of tiny fingers curled against soft blankets. Something about the sight made her chest ache, and she didn't understand why. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the living room. Elena came down in a robe, coffee in hand, to find Lena already awake, feeding the twins at the table. She looked different, calmer, cleaner, her dark hair pulled back neatly. "Good morning," Elena said. "Good morning, ma'am," Lena replied quickly, standing up. "Please, sit," Elena said with a small smile. "You're not my staff." Lena hesitated but obeyed. "I didn't want to sleep in. I thought maybe I could clean or help around." "You've done enough just taking care of those 2, Elena said, nodding at the babies. Michael was playing with his fingers while Mason giggled at the spoon Lena held. Elena couldn't help but smile. "They're adorable. They take after their dad," Lena said softly. That simple line, casual, almost whispered, made Elena's smile falter. "Their dad?" she asked carefully. Lena nodded. "He was special, kind, smart, the kind of man who made you believe he'd never hurt you." Her voice cracked slightly, but she quickly covered it with a shaky laugh. "Guess I was wrong." Elena sipped her coffee slowly, masking her curiosity. "Is he still around?" Lena's eyes fell to the table. "No. He passed about a year ago." Elena's heart skipped. A year. Daniel had died around that same time. She tried to sound casual. "I'm sorry. What was his name?" "David," Lena said. "David Cole." Elena nodded, forcing a polite smile, but something about the name didn't sit right. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe not. Later that day, while Lena napped with the twins, Elena sat alone in her study. The room was filled with photos, awards, business meetings, and framed memories of her and Daniel. She looked at one picture, Daniel smiling at a gala, glass in hand, those same hazel green eyes that haunted her since the night before. She found herself whispering, "Daniel, what were you hiding from me?" A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It was Dr. Mason, the family doctor who'd been with the Hartmans for over a decade. "Elena, I got your message," he said. "Everything okay?" "Yes, yes. Sorry for the short notice. She hesitated. "There's a young woman here. She was on the streets with twin babies. I brought them home last night. Could you just check on them? Make sure they're healthy." Dr. Mason raised an eyebrow but didn't question her compassion. "Of course." As he headed upstairs, Elena's eyes lingered on a half-open drawer in Daniel's old desk. Inside, an envelope, old, yellowed, but still sealed. Her heart raced as she picked it up. Written in Daniel's handwriting were the words, "For L.R. Her stomach dropped. "Lena Rivera, no. It couldn't be." She stared at the envelope, her pulse quickening, her mind spinning through possibilities. Was it a coincidence? A cruel trick from fate? She placed the letter back and closed the drawer slowly, her hands trembling that night as the rain returned. Elena lay awake listening to the soft thunder outside. Down the hall, she could hear faint laughter. Lena playing with her twins, for some reason. That laughter made her uneasy, not because it was loud, but because it sounded so familiar. The next morning, the mansion felt warmer. The baby's laughter filled the air like music, and the staff seemed lighter than usual. Even Marcus, the stoic driver, cracked a smile when Mason threw a pacifier at him. For a brief moment, Elena let herself forget the questions. She held Michael in her arms, and the baby reached for her necklace, the same one Daniel had given her on their 10th anniversary. He tugged it gently, giggling, his green-brown eyes glimmering. Something in her heart twisted. She whispered, "You really do have his eyes." Lena turned at that. "Whose eyes?" Elena blinked. "Oh, I meant, they're beautiful. That's all." But the question lingered in the air, heavy, unspoken. That night, Elena stood at her bedroom window, staring at the city lights. She couldn't shake the feeling that life had just played her its first card, and that the next one might break her heart. Sometimes the truth doesn't come crashing down all at once. Sometimes it drips in slowly, until the weight of it becomes impossible to ignore. Do you believe Elena should confront Lena about her suspicions, or keep silent until she's sure? Comment below what you would do if you found clues connecting a stranger to your late spouse. For the next few days, Elena couldn't focus on anything. She went through her meetings, answered calls, smiled at the right times, but inside, her mind kept circling back to that envelope. For L.R. The letters burned in her thoughts like a slow fire. Every time she saw Lena holding the twins, 1,000 questions whispered in her head. Was Daniel capable of that? Could he really have betrayed her so deeply and so quietly? She told herself she was being paranoid, but paranoia doesn't make babies with your husband's eyes. That evening, when the house had gone quiet, Elena returned to Daniel's old study. The smell of cedar and old paper greeted her, familiar yet haunting. She sat at the desk and stared at the envelope for a long time before finally tearing it open. Inside was a folded piece of stationery. Daniel's handwriting, neat, slanted, painfully recognizable. "Lena, I don't know how long I can keep this secret. I've done something unforgivable, and yet every time I see you with the boys, I feel something I can't explain. If anything happens to me, promise me you'll protect them. Don't come to the mansion. Don't tell Elena. She doesn't deserve this pain." Elena's breath caught. Her fingers trembled. For a few seconds, she just stared at the words, her heart pounding in her ears. She whispered, "Oh, Daniel, you liar." Her mind flooded with every moment they'd shared. The anniversaries, the promises, the late nights when he told her they'd grow old together. And all along, he'd been living a double life. Elena's composure cracked for the first time in years. She sank into the chair, clutching the letter to her chest, and sobbed, quiet, angry tears that felt both raw and cleansing. After several minutes, she wiped her face, steadied her breath, and reached for her phone. There was only one way to be sure. "Dr. Mason," she said softly when he picked up. "Elena, it's past midnight. Is everything all right? I need you to do something for me quietly." "Of course." "What is it?" "A DNA test. I need you to compare to samples, my husband's records and the twins." There was silence on the line, then Mason's calm voice. "You think they're his?" "I don't know. But I need to know." He didn't question her again. "I'll handle it." The next morning, Elena acted like nothing was wrong. She greeted Lena, played with the twins, and smiled at the staff, but inside, every smile felt rehearsed, like she was watching her own life from behind glass. Dr. Mason arrived later that day under the pretense of a wellness check. He chatted politely with Lena while taking cheek swabs from the twins. Lena didn't suspect a thing. 2 days. That's how long Elena waited. 2 days that felt like an eternity. On the third morning, her phone buzzed while she was in the garden. She glanced at the screen. Dr. Mason. Her heart hammered as she answered. "Elena," he said quietly, "I have the results. And? They're a match. 99.98% probability." The world seemed to tilt. Her knees went weak, and she had to grip the railing of the balcony to steady herself. Her voice came out a whisper. "So, it's true. I'm so sorry," he said softly. "Do you want me to come over?" "No," she said after a pause. "I need to be alone." She hung up and stood there for a long time, staring at the horizon, the golden sunlight over Beverly Hills that now felt cruel, almost mocking. Daniel had fathered those twins. The woman sleeping under her roof, the one she fed, clothed, protected, was her husband's mistress. And the babies she'd grown to love were living proof of the biggest betrayal of her life. That night, the house slept, but Elena sat awake in her study. The DNA report open on the desk beside Daniel's letter. She whispered to herself, "He promised me everything, and gave everything to someone else." Her phone buzzed again. A message from Lena. "Thank you for everything you've done for me, Ms. Hartman. I'll never forget it." The irony stung. Elena wanted to hate her. She wanted to throw them out, burn every memory, scream at the heavens for letting her be this blind. But when she thought of the babies, those tiny hands that clutched her necklace, those innocent eyes that didn't know what their father had done, her anger turned into something else, pity, sadness, a strange kind of love that refused to die. The next morning, she found Lena in the kitchen feeding Mason. The air was filled with the smell of pancakes and baby powder. Lena smiled when she saw her. "Good morning. I made breakfast. I hope that's okay." Elena managed a small smile. "That's very kind of you." They ate together quietly. The twins giggled between them, tossing bits of pancake onto the floor. For a fleeting moment, Elena almost forgot the truth, until she looked at them and saw Daniel's face in both boys. The ache returned, sharper now. Halfway through breakfast, she finally asked, "Lena, what was he like?" "Their father." Lena looked surprised, then lowered her gaze. "He was complicated. Charming at first, then distant. I never knew where I stood with him. He told me he was married, but he said it was over. I was young, stupid. I believed him." Elena nodded slowly, hiding the storm behind her calm expression. Lena sighed. "I never even told his wife. I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted to raise my boys." Elena stared at her for a long moment. Then she whispered, "You might be kinder than you think." Lena gave a small, confused smile, unaware of the weight behind those words. That evening, after everyone had gone to bed, Elena stood alone by the fireplace, the DNA results trembling in her hand. Everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and marriage had been rewritten in ink and science. But one truth remained: those children were innocent. And somehow, despite everything, she couldn't bring herself to hate them. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "Maybe this is my punishment, Daniel. To love what you left behind." The fire crackled softly, filling the silence that followed. "If you were Elena, would you reveal the truth to Lena, or keep the secret to protect the twins?" Share your thoughts in the comments below. Days turned into weeks, but the weight of the secret didn't lift from Elena's heart. On the surface, she smiled, laughed, played with the twins, but inside, every kindness she showed Lena felt like standing barefoot on glass. She wanted to tell her, she wanted to scream it out loud, "I know everything." But something always stopped her. Maybe it was mercy, maybe fear, maybe the quiet voice in her chest that whispered, "Don't hurt the children." So she stayed silent, and in silence, something darker began to bloom. It started small. Elena began feeling tired. She brushed it off as stress, the kind that comes with long nights and heavy hearts. But the exhaustion grew worse. Her stomach churned after meals. Her heartbeat skipped in strange rhythms. Dr. Mason noticed. "You don't look well," he said one morning, after she nearly fainted in the hallway. "I'm fine," she insisted. "Just haven't been sleeping." But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. One evening, Lena brought her tea, her usual chamomile blend, and sat across from her, smiling. "You've done so much for me, Miss Hartman," she said. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Elena managed a weak smile. "You don't have to. Just take care of your boys," Lena nodded. "I will." As she sipped her tea, Elena noticed something odd, a faint bitterness that hadn't been there before. She frowned but said nothing. That night, she vomited until her throat burned. The days that followed blurred together. Her body grew weaker, her mind hazier. She stopped attending meetings. She could barely climb the stairs. Dr. Mason ordered tests, but the results made no sense. "There's a toxin in your system," he said, confusion written all over his face. "Something's been building up over time." "Do you remember eating anything unusual?" Elena blinked, exhausted. "No, just tea every morning." His eyes widened slightly. "Who makes your tea?" "Lena," she whispered. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Dr. Mason said carefully, "Elena, I think we need to be careful. Don't confront her yet. Let me look into this." That night, Elena lay in bed, her chest tight, her vision blurry. She could hear faint laughter from down the hall. Lena's voice, light and carefree. The laughter that once sounded like hope now sounded like mockery. She forced herself up, dizzy, and walked toward the twins' room. The door was slightly open. Inside, Lena was on the phone, whispering, "Don't worry, baby," she said softly. "She's getting weaker every day. The pills are working." Elena froze. "Once she's gone," Lena continued, "we'll finally have everything. The house, the trust, the company. Just like you promised." The voice on the other end, male, familiar, Ethan Cruz, Daniel's cousin. Elena's heart dropped. Her mind screamed at her to move, to run, to do something. But she stood still, frozen, listening. "She's too soft." Ethan's voice purred through the phone. "She doesn't see it coming. Keep giving her the tea until the will is finalized. I already convinced her lawyer she wants to sign over guardianship to me," Lena whispered. "Once she's gone, everything's ours." Elena felt the air leave her lungs. Her knees buckled, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would burst. She stumbled back, pressing a hand to her mouth to keep from crying out. Her tea, her kindness, her home, all turned against her, barely making it to her room. She grabbed her phone and called Dr. Mason. He answered immediately. "Elena." "Doctor," she gasped. "You were right. It's Lena and Ethan. They're poisoning me." "What?" "I heard them. They want everything." He went silent for a beat, then said, "Listen to me carefully. You can't confront them yet. You're too weak. We'll need proof and a plan." She struggled to speak. "What plan?" There was a pause, then his voice dropped low. "Elena, what if we made them think you're already dead?" Her eyes widened. "You want me to fake my death?" "It's the only way. If they think they've won, they'll relax. They'll talk. We'll have what we need." Elena stared at the mirror across from her bed. Her reflection looked pale, ghostly, almost unrecognizable. Maybe she already was half dead, just not in the way they thought. She nodded slowly. "Do it." The next morning, the plan unfolded. Dr. Mason prepared a compound that would slow her heartbeat and lower her temperature, just enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking too closely. When she drank it, her body went cold instantly. Her limbs felt heavy. Her pulse slowed to a whisper. "Lie still," Dr. Mason said softly. "We'll take you to the hospital. Let the world believe you're gone." Hours later, the news broke. Billionaire philanthropist Elena Hartman dies after sudden illness. Reporters swarmed the mansion gates, staff cried, and Lena? She wailed the loudest, clutching the twins, sobbing dramatically for the cameras. But behind those tears was the faintest smile that night. When everyone thought Elena's body lay in the hospital morgue, she opened her eyes in a private medical room across town. Dr. Mason stood beside her, relief flooding his face. "It worked," he whispered. Elena's voice was weak but steady. "Now, we wait for them to show who they really are. If you discovered someone you helped was secretly trying to destroy you, would you fake your own death to catch them? Or walk away and let karma do its job? Tell me what your heart says in the comments." For one full week, the world believed Elena Hartman was dead. News anchors mourned her as a woman of grace and generosity. Social media overflowed with tributes, but inside her private hospital suite, the real Elena watched it all unfold on a muted screen. Alive, quiet and waiting, Dr. Mason and Marcus, her driver, were the only two who knew the truth. "Do you think they've taken the bait?" Marcus asked one night. "Oh, they have," Elena said softly. "Ethan can't resist power, and Lena, she can't resist attention." And she was right. Within days, the mansion became their playground. Ethan moved in under the guise of helping manage the estate. Lena dressed in designer clothes she'd found in Elena's closet. Reporters snapped photos of her walking the garden with the twins, her smile radiant, her guilt invisible. Elena watched every frame, her jaw tight, her eyes hard. "They're celebrating my death," she said quietly. Dr. Mason nodded. "Then let's make sure they remember it." 2 weeks later, a court hearing was scheduled, supposedly to finalize the transfer of Elena Hartman's estate to the legal guardianship of Lena Rivera. In the courtroom, Lena wore a red dress. Striking, confident, almost regal, Ethan sat beside her, his arm draped casually across the chair. The judge, gray-haired and stern, glanced over his glasses. "This hearing is to confirm the late Mrs. Hartman's will. Are all parties present?" Elena's lawyer, Mr. Reynolds, stood. "Yes, Your Honor. But before we proceed, I'd like to present a witness." A ripple of confusion passed through the room. Ethan frowned. "What witness?" "The woman's dead." Reynolds smiled faintly. That's what everyone thought. The courtroom doors opened, and there she was, Elena Hartman, alive, graceful, dressed in white. Every camera flashed. Every gasp echoed. Ethan's jaw dropped. Lena's hand flew to her mouth. No, that's not possible. You were dead." Elena's voice was calm, steady. "That's what you wanted, wasn't it?" The judge blinked in disbelief. "Mrs. Hartman, you're alive?" "Yes, Your Honor. Very much alive, thanks to Dr. Mason's quick thinking." She turned her gaze toward Lena, her eyes sharp as glass. "I wanted to see how far the two of you would go, and you didn't disappoint." Ethan shot up from his chair. "This is insane. She's setting us up." But before he could say another word, Mr. Reynolds stepped forward. "Your Honor, if I may, I have evidence." He nodded to the technician beside him. A large screen flickered to life. The courtroom fell silent as a video played. Footage from the hidden camera Dr. Mason had placed in Elena's hospital room. Lena's voice echoed through the speakers. "She's getting weaker every day. The pills are working. Once she's gone, everything's ours." Then Ethan's voice followed. "Keep giving her the tea. The lawyer already believes you'll inherit. Just don't mess this up." Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters scribbled frantically. The judge slammed his gavel. "Order! Order in the court!" Lena broke down instantly, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean to. He made me do it. I just wanted my boys to have a future." Ethan glared at her. "You were the one putting poison in her cup. Because you told me to." She screamed. The judge's voice boomed. "Enough." After a long silence, he looked directly at them. "This court finds both Ethan Cruz and Lena Rivera guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and attempted fraud. You are hereby sentenced to life in prison without parole." The gavel came down hard. Bang, bang, bang. Elena closed her eyes. For the first time in months, her chest felt light. Justice, not revenge, but truth, had finally been spoken outside the courthouse. Cameras surrounded her. Reporters shouted questions. Mrs. Hartman, how does it feel to be alive? What will happen to the twins? She paused, looking straight into the lenses. The children are innocent, she said quietly. They'll stay under my care. They didn't choose the mistakes of their parents. And I won't let them grow up believing kindness is a weakness. Then she walked past the flashing lights, head held high, leaving the noise behind her. Weeks passed. The mansion was quiet again. Elena returned to her garden, where roses bloomed brighter than ever. The twins played on the grass, their laughter echoing across the yard. Every time she looked at them, she saw Daniel's eyes, a reminder of the pain he left behind. But she also saw something new, a chance to rewrite the ending. One afternoon, she sat with them under the shade of an oak tree. Michael tugged at her sleeve. Mom, tell us a story. Elena smiled softly. A story? She said. All right. But this one's about a woman who thought she'd lost everything, until she realized the people she saved were the ones sent to save her. The boys giggled, not understanding the weight of her words. She looked toward the horizon. The same city that once felt like a battlefield now felt like home again. And she whispered to herself, evil may win for a while, but the truth always finds its way back. Kindness doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But even the kindest hearts must learn where mercy ends and self-respect begins. If this story touched your heart, don't leave without subscribing. It's one click, but it keeps stories like this alive. Would you have forgiven the twins' mother after everything she did? Or would you have walked away forever? Share your heart in the comments below.
Thank you for watching all the way through. If this story moved you, the next one will surprise you in ways you won't expect. Go ahead and click the video on your screen. Your next story awaits.